Welcome back to the course. So last time we talked about how the Forex market worked, but today we're going to get into TradingView. We're going to get into the charts and where we're actually going to do our trading. In this lesson, I am going to set up TradingView and show you how I use it. And don't worry, if you've never used it before, I'm going to walk you through every single step. So what is TradingView? Well, TradingView is basically a workspace where you look and analyze charts. This is where we're going to identify trends, identify support and resistance, right? You probably don't know what it is right now, but don't worry, we'll get there. Not only is TradingView available on desktop, but it's available on mobile as well. There is a paid and free plan. I personally use the paid plan. I'll explain why further in a minute, right? But you don't need the paid plan. You're perfectly fine with the free plan. So as mentioned before, right, there are different plans depending on what you need. Personally, I have the essential plan. The reason I have the essential plan is because I personally do not like to stare at my charts 24/7. So I want the ability to place a good amount of alerts. And with this plan, I am able to place about 20 alerts, which is really nice, and then 20 technical alerts. So in total, really 40 alerts. I'm also able to use like other indicators. I don't really use indicators, so I don't really need that. So really, I just have it because I place a lot of alerts, right? Now, you don't necessarily need to place a million alerts. I think the free version, you get at least 2, which is fine if you're focusing on one pair, right? We're not gonna worry too much about that. If you wanna get started with just the free version, that's completely fine. Okay, so we're gonna jump to my screen, and as you can see, we just opened up a chart on TradingView, right? I'm gonna show you every important component regarding this platform, right? So we're gonna ignore this for a minute and we're gonna look directly to the left side, right? Left side, we have this menu where we see a lot of useful tools. So I'm gonna show you just some super important tools that I tend to use pretty often, or that you may use, right? We're not gonna get into every little thing because it's not that important and there's too much to cover, right? We're gonna keep it very simple. So let's just jump over here for a second and just show you a few things, right? If I look on the left bar, if we stop at the top, right? We see we have a couple of different lines, right? I'm gonna show you a trend line. Trend lines are gonna be important to kind of show you like where the trend is going, right? So if I was to look at, let's say, a potential trend like here, we see that we are in a downtrend. You might wanna draw a trend line to show, hey, this is where price is respecting, structure. Now, again, we're not gonna get deep into it now. Just know this is something that you may use. So I would add a trend line to your favorites. In fact, if you wanna do that, all you have to do is go ahead and hit the drop down, click it, and click that star, which I already have it in my favorites as well, right? Okay, cool. Another important thing that you're gonna use, right? We're gonna go back to the lines, right? Something else you want to favorite is horizontal lines. So a horizontal line, you're just able to place lines on the chart wherever sees fits, right? And it's gonna be very useful for marking out our psychological levels, which I will get into way later in the course. But for now, let's just go ahead and add this to our favorites as well. So horizontal line, let's add it to our favorites. All right, next we are gonna find the rectangle tool. So if you drop down here to geometric shapes, right? And we go down, we see that we have rectangle. As you can see, I already have a favorite. I would do the same, I recommend it, right? Rectangle, we're gonna use this to draw our support and resistance levels. So I like to mark out my support with rectangles, right? And the same thing with my resistance as well. Any support and resistance levels, I like to mark it out with my rectangles, right? And we're gonna use these for different things as well, but mainly we're gonna use it for support and resistance. So I will also favor that as well. And then we have a text tool if you ever want to leave any mental notes on the side, right? Hello, YouTube, right? You can do that as well. So you can go ahead and favor that as well. We're gonna favor that text tool. So again, that's gonna be on the left side, right? This T, it's gonna be our text tool. So we can favor that as well if you want to, right? So if you want to see your favorites bar, you can actually look at the very bottom. There's a start icon. When you click on it, all your favorites pop up at the bottom where you can quickly click and use it without having to search that long toolbar. Because again, there's so many different tools, right? So now we're able to actually, kind of mark up things quickly because we don't have to search for it, right? So I highly recommend adding it to your favorites. It's gonna make your setup way, way easier. Okay, so let's talk about time frames, right? I want y'all to look at my chart again. Notice how we have all of these candlesticks, right? These are called candlesticks, right? This is a candlestick chart. Every single candlestick represents a certain amount of time. Now, how to determine that is based off of your time frame. If we look at the very top, so if you look at the top of my screen, you see that we have some different time frames. We are currently selected on the 1 hour time frame, right? But we also have the 4 hour, the daily, weekly, monthly, right? 3 month, 30 minute, 15 minute, right? Cool. All right. So basically what this means, each candlestick represents one unit of this time frame. So for example, this big black candlestick represents 1 hour of price selling down, right? Each candlestick represents 1 hour, 1 hour. So for example, if I was to look at 1, 2, 3, 4 candlesticks, right? These 4 candlesticks, in total, this is 4 hours of data. Does that make sense? Now, if I was to jump ahead to the daily, now each candlestick represents 1 full day, right? So this big bearish candle, this was 1 full day of selling, right? This candle right here pushing up, this was 1 full candle of price pushing up. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. There's also something called indicators, right? I don't really use indicators for my trading. Sometimes I'll use EMAs, but I'm still going to show you what an indicator is. If you go to the top of the screen, you see we have indicators. If you click on it, you can actually search up any indicator you want. So let's say I want to use a EMA, that is a exponential moving average. This is probably the only indicator I would put on my chart, right? So if I click on this, right, and I look on the left side, we see that we have a active indicator on our screen, right? This is a 9 moving average. You can actually go in and you can change the settings on this EMA, right? So you could change the color, right? So notice how now it's red, right? We can make it orange, right? We change it back to blue. You can change how big you want it to do it. So right here, this is a 9 EMA. If you want it to be a little bit smoother, you can do a 50 EMA, right? Notice how it changes, right? So you can definitely change your settings however does fits. We're not going to look too much into this, but I just want to show you where it was. All right, and there's also something called replay mode. Replay mode is super important. There's something called back testing. Sometimes when you're practicing your strategy, you want to back test old data. What does that mean? Well, if you look at the very top, you see there is a replay button. If I was to click this bar replay, I'm actually able to rewind price all the way back to a certain time. So as you can see currently, and let me jump back so we can really see it. Currently you see we are in the month of August, right? But I can jump time back all the way to June if I wanted to, right? So now we're back in June. So this is price action at June, right? And I can go in and I can back test my strategy. I can practice, you know, different trades. If I wanted to play out price about what happened, right? We have these buttons at the bottom. So we have a play button where you can just let it play out, right? You can also adjust the speed of it, right? So right here, we have a speed of 3. We can slow it down significantly, right? Or we can speed it up significantly as well, right? If you want to pause it, you can pause it here. Let's say you don't want to let it just play out. You just want to do like bar by bar. Perfect. This is where you're going to do this forward button right here, where you can just show each individual bar at a time, right? So notice I'm just clicking it individually and it's not shooting up fast. It is doing a single bar at a time per click, right? We can also change the time frame as well from here, right? So a lot of things you can do here. And we can, if you want to jump back to the real chart, you can do it here as well. Just jump back, boom. Okay, so let's talk about alerts, right? This is super important to me because again, I am a very passive trader. I do not like to stare at my charts, right? I only want to be involved in the trade when it makes sense. That is when alerts are important. Sometimes I set an alert on a specific place where if price triggers it, I'm interested in the trade, right? So to place an alert, you can do it 2 ways. You can either hover your mouse on the chart, click on the side, right? And you can add an alert as such, right? You can also just go to the alert tab. So if you look on the right, there is an alarm clock called alerts, and you can actually hit the add button, right? And you can actually describe what you want that alert to be. So let's say I want price to alert me when, I don't know. You can also put alerts on the EMAs as well, your indicators, right? But we're gonna focus on price. If price crosses level 15793, that's fine, right? I want an alert to be created. Boom, okay. Now I have an alert. Notice our alert was triggered at the bottom, right? And I also got a message on my phone. So if you look, not only does it show up on your desktop, but you can also get messages on your phone as well. So as you can see, I have an alert that it was triggered. Now, if I want to delete the alert, I just hover over it and I can just hit the delete icon, right? And you can experiment with alerts. I'm not gonna get too much into it. I just wanna show you, this is how I am able to set, you know, notifications for myself. So if I don't wanna stare at the charts, I can just set an alert and I get a text on my phone. So let's just keep exploring this right side panel, right? We also have watch list, right? This is where we are actually watching our specific pairs and what's currently happening. So currently we are on USD JPY. I actually expanded so y'all can see it, right? We're looking at USD JPY. But if I want to jump to another pair, I could jump to the NAS 100, right? So we see this is NASDAQ currently moving. I can jump to gold, right? I have some drawings on here, but as you can see, this is gold currently moving as well, right? Moving really nicely, right? So I can just jump between my pairs from my watch list. So your watch list is gonna be things that you care about and that you want to pay attention to. You do not want to have a million things in your watch list, just things that you want to start off with. I recommend starting off with one pair, two at the most, right? And just study and learn that pair. Me, USD JPY was my first beginner pair. I recommend it to every beginner. I think every beginner can succeed with USD JPY. Really good structure, right? We're gonna talk about that more in the future. But yeah, just keep your important pairs on your watch list. You can add a pair by clicking the plus button, right? You can type in any symbol. If I want to add Euro USD, I can do as such and I can click a chart. These are just different providers, right? It doesn't really matter who you choose. I'm just gonna pick Oanda, right? We're gonna add to the chart. And as you can see, now we are looking at Euro USD. Okay, and let's say you are, you know, you're in the technicals, but you want to know what's going on with the news, what's going on with the fundamentals. Perfect. You can also look at the news on TradingView. So if you look at the bottom, we have these little circles right here, right? You can actually click to see what were the latest news updates. You can click more events and you can see plenty of different news events, right? Of things that happen. So we can see right now, here's a news article talking about Asia shares are falling on tech, right? We have this pullback, right? Oil is stable. They're having Iran talks. Like we just see so many different things. You can read in detail about what's going on. So if you're, you know, you care about the technicals, you can look at it on TradingView. Okay, so now I want to circle back to my personal settings, right? Let's look at the personal time frames I use for swing trading. So for swing trading, you're only really going to need these time frames, right? We're going to have the monthly. Now the monthly isn't going to be super used. This is more of just speculation on a higher time frame when we get closer to the end of the month, right? Nothing too crazy. We're gonna look at this every blue moon, right? But what's really important is you're gonna want your weekly time frame to be favorited, right? So you can actually hit the drop down and you can actually select which time frame you want. So you see these stars, you can actually select it and add it to your favorites like so, right? So we're gonna want the monthly favorited, we're gonna want the weekly favorited, right? The daily, we're gonna need that as well in the 4 hours. So we're gonna use the weekly, daily, and 4 hour together to determine our bias and our overall direction of the trade. Monthly is mainly for speculation, as I said before, right? And as far as entries, we're gonna use this 1 hour time frame, right? 30 minute, 15 minute, 5 minute, right? These all are gonna be our entry time frames depending on what time frame we're analyzing on. Okay, and then to get more into personal settings, right, we're gonna look at my watch list, right? I am a big yen pair trader, right? I love to trade the yen pairs, right? So anything with JPY to me is what I mainly look at, right? So USD JPY is a main pair of mine. We're gonna delete all these extra drawings. Not important right now, but I just want to show you that USD JPY is something that I trade currently. I also trade GBP JPY. They move pretty much the same, right? We have AUD JPY, again, pretty similar structure. So usually I look at these 3 pairs and I kind of determine which pair gives me the best risk reward ratio. We're going to talk about that, right? Which pair gives me the most pips, right? And I compare the different trades and I go from there. Now, as far as like overall clean structure, USD/JPY usually takes the cake, but if I want something more volatile that will, you know, give me more pips, then I'll look at a more minor pair such as, you know, GBP/JPY or something like AUD/JPY, right? I also have NASDAQ. This is a indice that I am looking at, right? So this is NASDAQ. NASDAQ is just a index fund, basically a huge basket of stocks. I like trading NASDAQ because it's usually super bullish. And if you are a long-term trader, like a swing or position trader, it's pretty easy to kind of determine, you know, where it wants to go long-term. Usually it's going to go up most times. And then we have gold. Everybody loves gold. Gold is another extremely bullish pair. Currently, we've been on a, you know, a crash, but it's like we're, you know, making our way back up now. I'm not going to do a technical analysis, but gold is something else I like to watch as well on my chart. So I recommend you adding it as well. Now, you might have noticed that my chart might be a little different for yours color-wise. So my chart is purple and black, but your chart is most likely green and red right now, right? Green being your bullish candles and red being your bearish candles. Well, how can you change your chart and customize it? Well, that's a good question. So right here, you can actually right click on the screen and you can see at the very bottom, it says settings, right? And you can actually change a lot of things regarding your chart. You can change your background color. So if I wanted to make my background red, I can, right? I'm not gonna do that, but I can if I want to, right? I can go to the symbol and I can actually change the chart. So if I wanted to make my bullish candles, I don't know, pink, and I can make my bearish candles orange, I can, right? Again, not gonna do that. We're gonna go back to what we had. You can also save templates, right? So if you really like this and you wanna save it, you can make a template, hit save as, and you can actually name it and save it. I'm not gonna save this. I'm just gonna use one of my existing templates, go back to my black and purple, boom, right? So this is how you customize your charts. So I want y'all to pause the video and set up your chart to look exactly like mine, right? Your homework is to make a TradingView account, and I want y'all to basically copy my settings because we're gonna work with this throughout the course, right? And we are gonna continue to move forward. Now that we finished the TradingView setup, it is time to get into the actual technical analysis. We are gonna be talking about understanding market structure, the key foundation, right, to trading. So stay tuned and stick around, and we'll be there soon. Thanks for watching.